Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by trombone wonder kid, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I wonder.
As I wander?
As I wonder.
There you go. So we interviewed, one of our dear friends.
Rich Kelley.
And Rich Kelley. Our dear friend J.D. Shaw was unable to make his 9th appearance, so we instead were forced to interview Rich Kelley, who I think is, other than you, Lance, is the most talented musician I've ever played with in my life, which is he terrifies me. Like there's a short list of people who terrify me, and he's at the top of that list. So. Yeah, crazy. He's crazy. He's crazy. He's just crazy.
And he's a nice person, which is also just sort of knowing that he gets to sound like that and still be a nice guy.
Yep. It's I think my favorite part of the interview is when he said that he's not really a jazz player, which I stopped laughing like a week later. So. But anyway, there's a few ways that people can help support the podcast. Lance, why don't you tell the people about those 3 ways that the people can help?
There's 3 ways, people, 3 ways. You ready? Here's number one. Number one. You can go to patreon.com/ or is it just slash? You just say slash?
Yeah, you say / you're the only one.
No, there's other old people. But if you go to patreon.com/ The Brass Junkies, you can give us money, which makes us happy. Because it makes it easier for us to pay for the things that we have to do to keep the show going. So we have awesome patrons, and there are some incentives there.
We got over 20 of them right now.
How about that?
Over 20 patrons. Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
They are awesome, and they help us quite a bit. So if you'd like to help us in a financial way, that is one way that you can do it, probably the easiest way. It's all straightforward, and you can see when you go to patreon.com how to do it is pretty straightforward, and even $1 an episode is a big, big help to us.
Yep.
And the second way that you can help us is to give us a rating and review on iTunes. That's one of the ways in which the platform it helps others find out about us. And that's a simple take you a couple of minutes, and it's a big, big help in terms of people being able to find our podcast.
We're trying to get to 50 ratings on iTunes, and we are currently sitting at 45. So,
come on.
Yeah. So you could help us out.
Solid, for sure. And the third way is to just tell somebody about the show. If you're sitting in a section of brass players, and you're a fan of the show, ask if the others in your section have listened to any of the episodes, or if there's a particular one that you think a friend of yours might like, share it with them.
Or if you hate the podcast one of your colleagues is a real pain in the ass, then you could tell them it'll change their lives and just enjoy knowing that you're going to waste their time.
Exactly. That's a win-win-win. What we call that in the biz. So those are the 3 ways. Patreon.com. Give us a rating and review on iTunes. Tell a friend.
We would like to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing our hosting. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model euphonium mouthpiece. Find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on the Facebook, the Instagram, and the Twitter.
We have an announcement, which is that on April 29th, Andrew and I will be doing a live. Well, I guess they're all technically live.
This one's going to have a live studio, and by studio I mean bar audience.
At NERTEC.
Yep.
For those of you who aren't nerds, NERTEC stands for the Northeast Regional Tuba Euphonium Conference, and it's taking place at Ithaca, New York, Ithaca College. And we will be sharing the stage, I think, with Carol Jansch's quartet, probably the exact same time, although we have microphones. We could just crash the party, I suppose. But so if you're going to be at NerdTech, make sure you check that out. We're kind of experimenting with format. So we're going to use this as an opportunity for you to let us know, do you like these live events? And if so, we'll try and do some more of them. And then the other sort of newsworthy thing is that we have a new sponsor. Did you know that, Andrew?
I did know that.
It's money. It's really nice of the fine folks at Duquesne University. Actually, I teach at Duquesne, have done since 2000, I think. I've been there 17 years, egads. That's a long time. So the brass department, Jim Nova is the head of the brass department at Duquesne and has worked it out that they are now a sponsor for us. If you'd like to find out more about studying brass at Duquesne University, I would read you the URL, but it would cause things to go another hour over. So I'll just stick it in the show notes. You can see the fine folks at Duquesne have put together a site specifically for people who are interested in looking at the programs that are there. Great colleagues that teach on the brass faculty there.
Don't judge them all by Lance.
That's true. I'm the worst one by far.
Easily. Yeah, in a runaway. So, yes, so thank you to Duquesne. Thank you to Justin Benavides and the folks at NerdTech for having us share the stage with Tubular, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And without further ado, here is our interview with the freak that is Rich Kelley. And today we are joined by trumpet legend Rich Kelley with an EY. Rich Kelley.
With an EY.
Rich Kelley, how are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
Good. You are one of the few humans where when I was adding you to this call, we called you on your cell, and I actually did not need to look up the cell phone number. I actually know your number.
Hey, nice.
What you're feeling right now is honored.
Yes.
In case you couldn't put your finger on it. So.
What's that smell?
Yeah, what's
and I still know your number as well. But
you remember everything, so that's not really all that. That's not really all that impressive.
That's really what I hoped we'd get into, is whether you guys remembered each other's phone numbers.
I figured that'd be a good start.
Neither of us has Lance's number memorized, which is why he's bitter. So, but that's
I don't have my number memorized.
I believe that. I'd believe that. So Rich Kelley, you're like a crazy good trumpet player. That's pretty much all right. Is there anything else, Lance, or is
nope?
All right, I think that's good. Well, thank you for joining us, Rich.
Good. Thanks for having me. Awesome. This is painless.
So Rich was
fans would be super happy about that.
You what now?
Patreon fans would be really happy about 2-minute episodes.
Sure.
Jerks. Bigger than we thought.
So Rich used to be in the Meridian Arts Ensemble. Rich was in Boston Brass. He's played a crap ton of Broadway shows. He's played with the Boston Symphony, the Boston Pops. He does a lot of solo stuff. He did a famous trumpet and organ tour, which we'll talk about his stay in New Orleans here at some point in a few minutes.
He played on the brass recording project.
He played on the brass recording project with us, which he said was the highlight of his career. If I remember that correctly. Do I remember that correctly, Rich?
Oh, yes, of course. Absolutely.
You've done so much. So let's start way back when. You ended up going to school at Juilliard, right?
I did, yes.
And who did you study with at Juilliard?
With Mark Gould. He was then the co-principal of the Metropolitan Opera, who's since retired.
The last time that I saw Mark Gould, I walked up to him. We were at a concert together. Neither of us was playing, and he looked at me and he said, "Hitz," and I said, "Hello." I said, "Hello, Mark," and he just kind of stared at me, and then I said, "Hey man, do you know what the 6 most terrifying words in the English language are?" And he didn't even say what, he just nodded like, and I said, Mark Gould posted on your wall. which is actually which is something that like a month before that he had posted. I don't even remember what it was, but had posted something on my Facebook wall, and it was like I was excited and terrified as to what had been on my wall for like a full hour before I had seen it. So and when I told him those 6 words, he looked at me and he said, "Hitz, I could have made you a star.
That sounds right. That
Right?
sounds about right.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
that's Mark Gould for you. So what was it like studying with Gould? He's such a genius.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and it was oddly what I needed at the time. He taught me so much about musicality and just how to make it. And the funniest thing that I have lessons, my memory is, he would tell me, he said, no, it's good, man, but it like doesn't have that thing, man. It needs that thing. It took me like 25 years to figure out what that thing was.
Right.
I felt like I understood what he was saying, and that something was missing. And it took me the longest time to kind of get what it was, what the thing was. But it was just really interesting to have that kind of an experience, and nothing like any trumpet lessons I'd ever had before. I mean, he had the great foresight to I could walk in the room and sit down, and he could tell I was upset about something. And, sometimes we'd play duets, or he'd say, no, let's hit it. Or a couple of times he said, come on, man, put the horn away. Let's go for sushi. And that's what we would do that day. And that was what I needed that particular moment. And to have someone with, for the exterior that you might see or think to have a person care enough about you like that as an overall individual, as opposed to just the trumpet player, was really one of the most special things that I could ever thank him for. Because it made everything better, and it made the work that I could do better because I was in a better place. And so I'm so thankful to him for that. And the musicality and I still tell kids to this day, I mean, Gould was one of the first people who told me, he's like, get rid of the dead wood. He's like, music goes to or comes from somewhere. It has motion, it has life. Don't do that. Don't get rid of the dead wood. And so that was always one of the biggest things I tried to remember, or I didn't have to try to remember. It just stuck with me. So it was just so poignant. And it really rang true with me.
Speaking of which, can you tell the story about the master class or master classes when Gould would have the studio booing or cheering?
Yes. In fact, one of them, I think, might have been with Meridian as well. But he had the class boo or cheer if they were engaged. If they liked what they were hearing, if it was holding their interest, he'd say, clap, say yay. If not, you say boo.
Start booing.
Loud. And there were way more boos than yays at first. And we were kind of like, oh, geez, we thought we were pretty good. What's going on? So that was very telling to have that, not even to record yourself and hear it back, but to have real-time reactions to what you thought you were doing. It was, again, so telling and so poignant. And boy, did it make you sit up and take notice really quickly.
Love it.
Do you remember what how you turned boos into yays?
It was more of like paying attention to what you were doing, enjoy what you were doing. Usually when we got boos, it was because, I feel like we had rehearsed, it was tight, we were kind of maybe going through the motions and not putting the emotional fortitude behind it, like all the time, 24/7, every note that you play, or every phrase that you play. And so you go on autopilot for a little bit, and sure enough, the room goes, boom! And you're like, oh, hello.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, wasn't that bad, was it? I guess it was. Okay.
That's awesome.
Where'd
you grow up, Rich?
I grew up in Boston. I'm born and raised in a little town called Jamaica Plain. And I actually I live there now. I'm back in Jamaica Plain, of all places. And, this is where I was born and raised, which I think was one of the reasons I went to Juilliard, just because I was in Boston for so long. I kind of wanted to see another part of the world, albeit still East Coast.
Did you consider other schools, or Juilliard was the thing?
Juilliard was kind of the thing, but I didn't even know that I was going to get in. I did not get into Eastman. I got into NEC, New England Conservatory, and so those were kind of the three biggies. And so when I found out I got into Juilliard, that was my final thought process.
Had you met Gould before you went to New York?
I did not. I had a friend of mine in Meridian Arts Ensemble. Yeah. He may have scared me at that point.
He scares you at any point.
Anyone who hasn't seen them needs to Google Pink Baby Monster and go watch some videos right now. And you'll either be very mad at me for suggesting that, or you're gonna thank me because it just changed your life for the better. So if you're a weirdo like the three of us, then that will be the case.
Once you're done crying, laughing, you'll be great.
we saw. I've only seen one Pink Baby Monster show live, which is a shame, but. With Boston Brass, we were in Banff at the at ITG, and they were the featured like the night concert down in the club at Banff, and the five of us. This was long after Rich left the group. The five of us got in early, and we were sitting in the front row, like front row center for this thing. And that was one of those nights where the entire band was completely hammered, like just completely hammered. And then that was the time when I saw, every time I see Gould for the first time in a while, like the first 10 seconds is always high protein. It's always good. And I saw Gould in the cafeteria on like the second day of the thing. I go, Gould, and he says, Hitz. And then I said, how was your trip, man? And he said, I was able to get the blow up dolls and the Reagan mask through customs without question. and I said, you know, I've learned long ago, you don't even ask why. You're just like, cool, man, that's great, you know. And then sure enough, fast forward to the next day to the Pink Baby Monster show, and there's like a Reagan mask and blow up dolls and all sorts of stuff. But I felt like we were a show on top of the show, like the five of us. It was it left a mark. So yeah, that was fun. So
the show was a history of Jews in the desert, which was like, we went all the places that you shouldn't go.
Yep.
And Nozzle had a cameo. Marcus Rojas was playing tuba.
Yep.
Hey, yeah.
Yep.
It was all there.
It was incredible. Yep.
Oh, that's really great to hear. I knew Marcus a lot in New York when I was living there. And,
yeah, right on.
You know, great guy, great tuba player. It was really, he's a good dude.
He's awesome. He's awesome. So, speaking of your time in New York, you ended up basically getting kicked out of Juilliard because you were working too much to attend class, right?
Yeah, I can't say kicked out. I left of my own accord, but I would have had to repeat a year.
Oh, man.
I would have had to repeat a year, and I think at that point I had enough. And,
right.
Couldn't see my way clear to do it. And it's in a way it's a shame because I was not that far, but that was the choice I made at the time, and I felt like I needed to make for what I thought my sanity was. And but yeah, I was absent a lot, which is, while a great thing, didn't help the grades.
The first step is being present. So, which I figured out my sophomore year at Northwestern with regards specifically to music theory. They just made it so early, which didn't really seem like good planning on their behalf. But they weren't really looking. There was no. I looked for it. There was no suggestion box. Can you tell the story about the gig you played in Central Park, which you ended up like playing third trumpet, and you ended up like playing a whole lot of gigs on Broadway because of somebody you met there?
Yeah. No, it was one of the great ones. I realized I had actually done one other show before that, and a man named Wilmer Wise had kind of just taken me under his wing a little bit and said, "Why don't you come play this?" And that was the first, and frankly, in my mind, it was pretty disastrous, and I was scared out of my mind. And I think a couple of years later, Lorraine Cohen, Moses, at the time, was playing next to me. We're just playing all these marches, and it's, 100 degrees. It's hot. And so I'm sitting there trying to practice what I preach, to everybody now. It's like, be a decent human being, show up, pay attention, try to just do the best you can. And so, I wasn't fooling around. I'm sitting there playing offbeat, for hours. And,
having Rich Kelley playing those parts is like, that's pretty funny right there. That's like putting Messi in to play goalie, in a second grade, soccer match. And I know he's not a goalie. Everybody don't send me emails. I'm just, I imagined him actually shooting the ball and he would injure people. So that's why I made him a goalie. But anyway, continue, Mr. Offbeats.
And so I'm sitting there, and we're all sweating, and she looks at me and goes, "You ever play Broadway?" And I kind of went, "No, not really." And she said, "Do you wanna?" I was like, she said, "You sound good." I was like, okay. So that was one of the. So the next thing I did, I think, was Jerome Robbins Broadway. And for those of you who don't know, Jerome Robbins Broadway is like kind of a greatest hits. So you play some of The King and I, a whole bunch of West Side Story, just like all the big hits. It was more like a review, if I remember correctly. And it was challenging from the Screech book to the first, second, and third book. All books, you were busy, and it was good. And I ended up playing all of those books but the Screech book, and which is good because I wasn't there and had no desire to have that kind of heat. But yeah, so that was kind of the beginning of that, and then that blossomed into other things, and yeah, I ended up playing a whole ton of shows, and had also, and again, another thing, thanks to Gould, was speaking of gigs, that he sent me out to play a Cantata 51. It may have been my freshman year. He hands me his G trumpet and says, "Yeah, learn this. I want you to play this." So I went and played. It might have been with the Westchester Symphony. The first thing real gig I kind of played. And went up there and played Cantata 51, the whole thing, having never played it before, didn't know it. And the conductor liked me enough, and I started getting calls for other things, and other musicians called me. It turned out that one of the violinists in the Met was actually on that gig, and I ended up speaking to him about it years later, like just a few years ago. And he was like, "I was on that gig. You sounded great." It was just very flattering. But yeah, who knew? Who knew? So yeah, I'm glad I had the focused blinders on, and wasn't looking around for who was in the room. Not that I would have known at that point anyway. But yeah, just another example. It's like thank you, Gould. Thank you, people. Thank you, word of mouth, and trying to just go do the best you can.
What is the list of you teach student, and what is that list of non-musical things that you're talking to them about?
Just a little bit. Yeah, just a human animal. Whether you run into a diva or just somebody with a bad attitude or whatever it is, and I tell people, I don't care how good you are. If you're a drag to work with, they're going to hire somebody else who's not as good, because it's just easier. It's just not worth it.
That's why Lance doesn't work that much anymore.
Yeah.
And the
difference is I know it.
To reference the sad Kathleen Battle, thing, it seemed like there was just too much water under the bridge or whatever, and fantastic singer, and she was let go. It was really, it's just a testament to, like, just be decent, okay, folks. Just try to be decent to a person.
Right.
Well, when people are making a T-shirt that says "the battle is over,"
right.
That's not a way.
I survived the battle.
Yeah.
Just things like that. It's like, oh, brother, And so yeah, try not to be that person ever. and just the things. It's not so much extra musical, but even just kind of using your brain. And it's like the only time you practice is not when the horn is in your hand. I feel like I get so much done by just singing through things, or making sure that even if it's a hard piece and there's a roadmap, just kind of knowing where you're going and being prepared that way, even if you haven't put the horn on your face yet, for me, it seemed to make a huge difference with just being able to be calm and to feel more prepared. And I think that those things have been really helpful for me. And boy, does your brain get better at retention and noticing things quickly, just like sight reading or anything else. I mean, I was so bad at it at first, but that learning curve seems pretty fast, which was great.
Speaking of
very helpful stuff.
So speaking of retaining things, you freak, Rich can listen to. I mean, you could just whistle like 20 random pitches that have absolutely no tonality, no nothing, and Rich can play it back for you. Not only play it back, and I'm not exaggerating to anybody listening to this going, he could not only play that back for you, but you could play it back up a half step before you even play it in the key that it was whistled in to begin with. Like, that's crazy.
Oh, thanks. And you know, to not exaggerate, I don't think I could do that. An old friend of mine said we met, you know, years ago and had fun, and we were in school together, and he started doing that. He started playing notes back and forth. He said we got up to about 12 or 13 before you even messed up.
All right, 12 or 13. So yeah, there you go. So it's not before you started to mess up. So. Yeah, just incredible ability to retain stuff, and what I refer to as you're the only person I've attached this to is beyond perfect pitch, which it's not even just perfect pitch. It's like, you know, you can and Rich is so nice about how he puts it. In Boston Brass, when we would rehearse, and it was incredible because we had like that kind of ears in the band, and so when he would say like, and we would ask him to say this, so it's not like he was like, hey, you're 8 cents sharp, but you know, like you would say it nicely because we would ask you to, but you'd be like, you know, you're actually sharp on that, like a lot or a little, and you'd be like, well, like 8 cents. I mean, it was just like, it was like and I loved how you put that that having perfect pitch is a social skill, because like there are so many people who are a complete pain in the ass about it, who you know, listen to a recording that's sped up and like, you know, claim that they just can't handle it, and you know, and like and all that, and you've expressed to me strongly that that's bullcrap, and that people just need to get over themselves.
Yeah, you know, I used to think that it's great because a friend of mine took me to task because I was talking about it one day, and he just looked at me and said, "How do you know that? How do you know what that person feels or thinks?" And I was kind of like, okay.
Did you say,
like,
I'm Rich Kelley with an EY? I know things.
No, but it was good, and it was a social lesson for me.
There you go.
Not try to do that. I was like, yeah, you really don't know, man. It's like you may not like dealing with it or how it's going, but that's not to say that you know or you are in the know ever about anyone else but yourself.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that was a really kind of great social moment for me to be like, yeah, don't be a jerk.
I used to love in rehearsals when we would have a lot of fun in rehearsals, and when there was some lick that got passed around the band, and say JD had it first, and that JD cracked the heck out of some note, and then if Rich then had the figure the second time, that Rich would not only crack the same note, but it was identically missed. I mean, whether it was high or low or scooted or like scooped or whatever. I mean, I verbatim, but on a trumpet. And then whoever was next, if it was me or Ed on trombone or whatever, would then try and match that. And so we would end up passing, which ironically like led to really, really intense listening, you know, I mean, because you were having to mimic, and mock your friends by missing things. But it was like, but yeah, you raised the bar of how well you could mock your friends, and so it was. Those were fun times.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say that, and it's funny too. That started when I started playing Jerome Robbins Broadway. There was just this one little section that went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, first, second, third, and so the first guy would start changing it up. You know, whether he came from be-dum, or whether he came from above or went whatever. So if you were playing second, you were on the hot seat to really try to see what was coming and going to match it. So that was kind of a very fun beginning to that on the job. It was
awesome.
Was a neat bit of training I didn't know had happened.
That's great.
When did you know that you had a thing that was called perfect pitch?
I didn't know it for a little while. Since I was playing and was playing well after my first year, and then I switched schools, and my band director got to me, but first my choral director got to me and thought maybe I had it. So he took me to the piano and played a C. And at that point, I didn't know how to transpose. So, of course, I called it a D. And then he goes, and he's telling me he played an F sharp. I called it a G sharp. And he goes, yeah, you don't have it. And not long after that, my band director said, come here for a second, sit down. You know, my band director was a clarinetist, so he already knew the deal about B flat and C, and so then he did it, and then sat me down and said, okay, here's the deal. And I thought that's just what happened when you played an instrument. I mean, in my first year, I would go home and learn like cartoon themes and TV themes, and I would just listen to them and then play them. And I had a piano in my house that was a half a step low, but I never knew it. And so I would learn, like I learned the end to the Incredible Hulk on piano, but I would make it sound like it did on TV. So I was playing in a bizarre key, which was, funny in itself. But yeah, it really took, I'd say at least a year, maybe two, before it really got explained to me. I really thought that that's just what happened when you played an instrument. So I was kind of, without being judgmental about it, I was kind of like looking around at people having trouble going, well, isn't that what you do? Isn't that how this works? So it was very strange and fun.
Do your kids you have a couple kids, do they have perfect pitch?
I do. They have really good pitch. I don't think they have perfect pitch, but I guess that still remains to be seen. My 13-year-old is playing bass clarinet in the band now. She's in 8th grade at Boston Latin Academy. And my 11-year-old loves playing my trumpet. So I actually, this Christmas, just gave her my trumpet that I started on in the 6th grade.
Huh.
And not being a show dad, and she definitely is not into it if you start, really saying, all right, well, let's do some fingerings, let's learn some stuff. And Dad, okay.
I want to talk to you about your embouchure, honey.
Right, exactly. And the scary thing was she was so funny because she just wanted to play, always wanted to do it because, I always practiced around them. And so one day she finally wanted to, and she looked at me and I showed her how to make the sound. She grabbed my trumpet, a B-flat trumpet, and played a low C. Bang! Like just right off the bat. And I kind of went, do that again. Bing! And I said, okay, give me the trumpet back now. Yeah, that's good. We're good here. But it was really funny. And so when you teach her, like she had me write out the Pink Panther and learn how to play that. And one of the most fun things that I've gotten to do with my girls was Aria was playing regular clarinet and Livy was playing my trumpet. So instead she played my flugelhorn. And I taught them parts to the A section to Eine kleine Nachtmusik, and then I played the melody on pick. And so we all of a sudden had a trio in the kitchen, and it was just one night while I was making dinner, and it was just really, fun. And then that whole parental thing went up a notch when I played my first church gig with my daughter, and we ended up playing the Largo from New World. So she played it first, and then they repeated, and I played it, and then we played it together. So I'm like playing harmony under my daughter with this pianist in this church, like fighting back tears, like going, "Oh my God, I'm playing with my daughter." This is, it was really freaky.
Wow.
I didn't expect it to be as emotional as it was, and it was a really cool thing to do. And my daughter is still okay with me, so great.
Awesome. Fun. I've got to play a couple gigs with my son at church as well. And, Do you find yourself doing a little like gig coaching as well? Like, we're going to stand here, you got to do this, come in, count that. It's like this stuff that, I've been next to newbies on church gigs a bunch of times, and you just sort of automatically do. And to do it with your kid, it's just such this weird kind of mashup of worlds. But my son's talking to me too, so fortunately I must have handled it right.
Good, yes. I hear you. And, well, and the good thing, too, is that the music director, Michelle McCourt, she runs a neighborhood children's theater that both my girls do, and they were both singing in the church choir and had been doing it for a little while. So they were no strangers to how the church works and what to do when. And so it was really interesting and wonderful to see a calm. It wasn't like, what, do I, here, now, what? It was like, Aria, let's play that now. Okay. And she does that. So you're like, okay.
See, my son does the thing that all trombone players do, which is to not give off the fact that you have no idea what's happening. But just by his body language, I know that he has no clue where we are. And I'm like, I point to a thing, and then I see like relief come over his body, and he nods. Yeah, I knew that.
Right, yes.
Okay, sure you did. What's more?
Never let him see you sweat kind of mentality.
That's right.
You mentioned.
You talk about? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Lance.
Meridian Arts Ensemble. Can you? I'm not sure how many people remember that band, and that's a shame if they don't. And can you talk about that band and what it was, what it did, where it went, those sorts of stuff?
Sure. And John Nelson was the one who started it, trumpet player. And I came in, I think, a year after it started, and just started doing all kinds of stuff. But just kind of for that time for us, the groundbreaking, all the kind of stuff. So we started playing the Etler and the Ira Taxon and, Lutoslawski Mini Overture and Jambach and all that kind of stuff. We won a competition called Concert Artists Guild. And so we ended up going to Holland to record. And so that was our first album. It was like Hindemith Morgan music, the Etler, Jambach, Armenian scenes, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of things. And to just keep it going, to have done more jazz, every now and then we'd add a drummer. And we ended up doing probably about a year of like almost, not strictly, but a lot of Frank Zappa, which was great. And that was one hero of John's. And so it was, incredibly meaningful for him as well. And just great fun tunes. And so we did some singing, we did playing, a lot of jazz solos, and then people would do arrangements as well. And then to go to the Monty Python, and now for something completely different, the last album I did with them before I left was Visions of the Renaissance. So, and arguably one of my favorite albums to do. I just so enjoy that genre, all the way from Bach to Gesualdo to Shined, you name it, a lot of the greats. And having inherited some great arrangements from a trombone player friend of mine named Ted Tupin, who's since passed away, but just beautiful music. And again, we got to go back to Holland, and the churches were just unbelievably beautiful, and just so friendly for the size of group and the whole thing. And I know it's like an okay album because I can play it for my girls. Just like I play, my girls never stop listening to Christmas Bells Are Swinging for Boston Brass. And if they don't like it, they'll tell you. I mean, Daddy, yeah, can you turn that off? Sure. But that happily has never happened with that one or the Christmas Bells, and they're pretty cool with the Kenton recording we did as well. So it's a good barometer. No politics, no nothing. They'll tell you if they don't like it.
Is Gesualdo really a composer, or did you make that name up?
Say it again.
Is Gesualdo really a composer, or did you make that name up?
I started to say Gerald, and it got screwed up, so I went with it. Yeah.
Where's Gesualdo? How long did you do Meridian, and then how long after that did you join the Knuckleheads that we were all a part of?
I think Boston Brass was, Meridian Arts Ensemble was 87 to 94. And then I left and ended up leaving New York in about 97 for good. I'd gone back and forth a bunch. And I got home and was literally sitting in my attic at my mom's house, kind of going, okay, what have I just done? I just left all this work in New York. Am I crazy? And the phone rings, and it's J.D. Shaw. and he says, hey, and he says, yeah, you want to go on tour for a month? I was like, what? So, and having just gotten out of the quintet, I wasn't so sure about it. And
that's my favorite. That's my favorite part of that story. Is like, after just getting out, I really wasn't convinced, but I said, "What the hell?"
And so I did it, and all the rehearsals and Caravan at the end, kicking my butt, and all the rest of it. And so we go on tour for a month. We get done with the first grueling concert. I'm dead to the world. I get in the van. I sit down, staring at the floor. And Jeff Connor doesn't even look up. He goes, well, 29 to go. I literally almost started sobbing at that point. I was like, what have I done? Oh my God.
Says the guy who never has to play above like a middle C in the show. So yeah, exactly. 29 to go.
How did you know JD?
I didn't until that point. I had no idea who he was.
That's why he agreed to go.
Yes. But I think he got my name from Peter Bond, who plays, I believe, second trumpet at the Metropolitan Opera. And so he and Pete knew each other. And I since I had met Pete with Jim Pandolfi and Mark Gould and all those folks in New York, I think that's how he got my name. And so that's why this call was just so funny. I'm sitting there going, oh, my God, and then the phone rings. I'm like, wait, what? So,
where was your first gig with Boston Brass?
The very first one was at BC, actually, and I can't remember what it was, but we played some things outside, like in the quad, for some, festive experience for part of the day, and that was kind of the first one that I can truly remember. And I know we did other things, in Boston around, I would think, before we went on tour, in addition to a whole bunch of rehearsing. But yeah, that's the first one that I can remember.
Actually, I'm glad I remembered this. We were talking to Charles Lazarus earlier this morning, who at this point will have been a couple of episodes ago, and he was talking about a time when the Dallas Brass tour bus got pulled over and that they were all at gunpoint from cops, and that reminded me of the story. This was right before I joined the band, of you in the bathroom of like a McDonald's or something in Oklahoma when you were at gunpoint.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so
Altus, Oklahoma.
There,
yes.
So you need to tell that story, since I mentioned in 2 episodes ago that you were going to.
So we land and we're hungry. In fact, JD's mom, I think, was picking us up in that big van, and so we go into McDonald's, and I said, all right, hang on, I'll be right back. So I walk into the bathroom. A guy had walked in just before me. I, of course, thought nothing of it. So I used the bathroom. I washed my hands. I'm standing at the dryer, and the door opens. The door flies open. I glance over my shoulder, and it's a cop with his hand on his gun. It's still holstered, but his hand's on his gun, and he's holding the door wide open. And he says, is there anyone else in there? I said, I think there's a guy in the stall. And he says, would you mind not making any sudden moves? I was like, I can do that. Okay. So I stood there and stood still, and JD, bless his heart, stood up and said, that's my friend. And I looked at JD. I said, JD, it's fine. Sit down. I don't want to get shot.
Sit down.
Said, sit down. I love you, man, but sit down.
How am I going to unsee this now?
So he finally asked me to come out of the bathroom. So I come out of the bathroom, and it turned out that there had been 2 guys who robbed, I don't know if it was a bank or a store or something, but they were dumb enough to call a cab and send it to that McDonald's to pick them up. Oh. So they were waiting for the getaway cab, which I've never heard of in my life. But so yeah, we just happened to land right in the middle of that. That was really something. But yes, no bullet wounds, no scars. We're good.
Waiting for the getaway cab. That's
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us the story about the Nights Inn in New Orleans. Was it the Nights Inn or the Friends Inn?
It was the. I think it was the Friendly Inn.
Friendly Inn. Sorry.
A fitting name. I was on tour with a group called Staccatos and Flourishes, which is basically organ and trumpet, and traveling around in an RV. So we get where we're going. They put me in a hotel. They stay in their RV, and so I'm there at night, and I'm hanging out, and all of a sudden I hear these noises that are close. I mean, to the point where, like, I dive on the floor between my bed and the wall because it sounded that close, and I think they were gunshots.
Yeah, man.
And so I stayed down there for a little while, and waited to see lights. I was like, no, I'm good here. I might just sleep here. Maybe I'll sleep in the bathtub if it's cast iron. I was like, whoa. So that was an interesting New Orleans moment. The Friendly Inn, which I've gone back years since, and it's gone. The place is gone.
Oh, that's weird.
That's
the way you described it was always so nice that it sounded like a real clean carpet that you had to dive onto.
Happily didn't give it a second thought.
Ah, the wonders of the road.
Yes.
How would you describe the difference? I mean, it's on the surface of it a really obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you compare the sort of the mission of Meridian Arts versus the mission of Boston Brass and the stuff we were doing?
It's in my opinion, it's hard to, because it seemed like both groups were always so interested in, I don't want to say being on the cutting edge, but making it the best experience that it could be, not only for us but for the listeners. And so Meridian Arts I think just for the year that it was, and Empire being so prevalent and all the rest of it, that that's just all what they always wanted and always tried to do. And I'd say Boston Brass did the same thing, and maybe just slightly different, like maybe not so many, what's the word I'm looking for, some new commissions or kind of modern music commissions. But since JD was so proficient and so good at doing so many of the arrangements, so to be able to play a great first half of classical music, some very known and some not so known, and then to be able to turn around and truly play jazz. I mean, and God bless all you tuba players, Hitz especially, to be playing like 9 minutes without a break. I don't get, and I'm so glad that you could do it, because it talk about opening up the world. It made you not be bound by breathing, the fact that you could do what you do. And so it was a very interesting and great experience to be able to, flip the coin and go and have it be good.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, you got at it exactly. I feel like there are groups like Meridian and, the American Quintet for sure, and some of the Center Street stuff, where it's, I think, more of an emphasis on pushing the state of the art in terms of commissions and that forward-looking repertoire. And I feel like what we were trying to do in Boston Brass was to, actually, maybe this is the way, this works better in my head. Empire at its peak kind of did both. Did both. And they could do the Etler, and then they could go do Broadway and sell it. And then it kind of diverged, and some groups went more after the Etler, and other groups went more after the, I hate to say pop because it's just got such a negative connotation, but the poppier stuff. And I feel like we were doing serious rep, but not like cutting edge brass, original brass works kind of rep. And you went down both those roads, which is pretty cool and an interesting. You've got a perspective on it that not many folks who've done that job do have.
Thanks. And it's been a nice thing that I've ended up doing that through most of my career, which is nice. I'm certainly not a jazzer by any means, but I can fake it pretty well, and and all the rest of it. So it's been such a great thing to be able to do that. Talk about not getting bored or stuck in one. I don't know. I hate to say rut, but stuck in one channel. It's so nice to be diverse.
Mm-hmm.
So Rich is saying that he's not a jazzer by any stretch. I think those are the words he just used. Rich could be playing a solo, and you could just you could bark out sound like Clifford Brown, and like a switch was flicked, he can suddenly immediately start playing like Clifford Brown, and then you could yell Miles Davis, and then he can start sounding like Miles Davis, and then you can yell Chet Baker, and then he'll start playing like Chet Baker. But other than that, he's not a jazz artist at all. Yeah.
See, I've heard at least 2 tunes from each of those people, so that's why.
That's the point. That's all you need to hear. You're like, okay, I've heard 8 minutes of Chet Baker, and now I can completely mimic the notes he plays, the rhythms, everything else. So,
so how are you living indoors and eating food now?
Say that again. How am I living indoors?
Well,
and
what are you doing to create money to come in your direction?
Hand model.
Oh, okay. It's still been a whole lot of word of mouth. Like right now, I'm about to start a rehearsal with Phil Glass music with Boston Modern Orchestra Project, or BMOP. And so the concert is tonight, and we had a rehearsal yesterday. So we're going to start the dress rehearsal at 1:00, which is why this slides in right into the wire. So between that, and I do a lot of playing with Boston Pops, which is great, and some solo things. I did tell Andrew that I had just done a requiem that an organist friend of mine had written, a requiem for an American in Paris. And it's almost chant-like, and it's just different than anything out there. And so we recorded it, and we just played it here at Trinity Church in Boston. And the big thing is we're going to get to do it in St. Pat's Cathedral in New York City. And I believe that's November 2nd of this year. So that's some fun things looking forward to and coming up. And then I've done some other, I've started doing more shows coming through, every now and then the occasional jazz gig. And So happily, it's been busy.
Are you on the road much, or are you home mostly?
Home mostly, but I've been on the road this year probably more than I had planned. Which is cool. So I just did the American in Paris, flew down to Charlotte and played there for a week, and came back. And then about a week or two later, I left with Pops and was just in Florida for about 10 days. And now I have some time off and a few things going on, but then I leave toward the end of March again into April. And then some more things just kind of keeps happening day by day, and the calendar seems to be filling up okay. So paying the bills is good. Woo-hoo.
Are you still doing Brass Band of Battle Creek, or were you? How's that work?
Yeah, no, that's a good one too. And I've just been out there in December, and I'm going to be out there again in May. And that's at least twice a year. That keeps you way busy as well. How the brass bands are, since you're playing violin parts and all the rest of it. It's you're not bored.
How's that band doing? Are they sort of back from the brink? It seems like they are.
Yeah, no, I think things are good, and I think their funding has kind of gotten better or reapproved, and so we've been doing a lot more when we're there, whether it be lessons with kids or a brass day. And so we've had several kids who have come back more than once and actually kind of know us. So that's been really great to see that part of it grow. And so it's going to keep growing, and things keep getting interesting, including, musical choices and all the rest of it. It's a great, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a diverse music. So it's not just walking in and hearing a lot of contest pieces or something like that. It's very entertaining, but still highly challenging. And the last big thing we did was Chaik 4, the finale to Chaik 4. So, again, you're not bored.
Well, you were the first guy that I was in a band with who ended up getting off of the road, the full-time road for family reasons, which I have a lot of respect for. So I obviously followed in your footsteps, eventually, as a number of us have. But and I wasn't happy about it at first, since you're one of my dearest friends in the world, and we literally hung out every single night on the road. But when the time comes, you got to make the call, and you did it. So, which I applaud you for.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
No, it was not an easy decision, but it was also a no-brainer. It
wasn't an easy decision, but it also wasn't a hard one.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, once I knew we were having a second baby, I was like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah, and goodbye.
Like, I hate it, but I'm out.
Yeah,
okay,
man.
Bye. And which wasn't true. I mean,
sure.
Not that I hated it, but the idea of the change, I think, was the scariest part. But yes, made complete sense, and boy, was I glad.
Yep. Yeah, amen.
They know the cause of babies now.
Yeah, they do know the cause of babies.
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry.
He said they do know the cause of babies now.
Yes.
A lot of research went into that.
Yeah.
All right. So Rich literally got to rehearsal early for us so that we could talk to him on the phone. So we've got a hard out here because he wants to be like on time and professional and all that crap. So we've got just enough time for you to offer some advice for one of your very good friends, Jens Lindemann. I'm sure, as you know, he's going through a very difficult time right now with his chops. Pray for Jens.
Yeah, that's right. I heard about that.
Yeah. So, what advice would you offer up to him in this time of need?
That's a fine question.
Jeff Connor on the phone?
Yeah, we did get Jeff Connor. That was a Jeff Connor sigh, man.
It was. You're right. Oh my God. I turned into Jeff.
He's channeling you, man.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, man. I'm just like, I don't know. Relax, man. Have a drink. I have no idea what to say about that.
Relax.
I have no clue. I'm sorry. That's really disappointing. And I think where I might go is not family oriented. So I'm gonna keep that one to myself. And that's no judgment about the sexual practices of my colleagues. I'm just saying I don't need to go there.
See, the way I read that is you don't want him to get better. That's I could tell you how to fix that. But I'm not gonna.
Even the nicest trumpet players in the world, like Rich Kelley, they're still trumpet players.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
Imagine if it wasn't JD at that McDonald's going, "Hey, that's my friend."
Yeah, imagine if it was another trumpet player.
I've never seen that man before in my life. I don't know who that is.
He threatened me.
He stands up and goes, "That's the guy. That's the guy."
And he's like, "Hey, your cab is here."
Yeah. Oh goodness! Never a dull moment on the road.
Yes.
Well, Rich, this was. You what?
Oh, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I was just going to wrap up.
No, those were the two, man. Altus, Oklahoma, and I didn't get to tell you, but Little Rock, Arkansas was another interesting police moment. But we'll save that for another time.
Oh, and Little Rock was the place when Little Rock was also the place when you came out of the bathroom at the airport, and the bathroom happened to be right next to the shoe shine stand, and Rich happens to be African American, which is, I believe, why this older white guy said to Rich as he walked out of the bathroom, like, "When are you back on duty?" Because he wanted his his boots polished. Yeah, and so and Rich just said, "I'm sorry, sir," and then walked on. So, and the guy looked pissed. So yeah, man. I thought we'd end the podcast on a nice little, on a racial incident. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Which played no role in the Oklahoma thing either. So, it's all good. There's no racism in America. It's fine. Everything's fine. So.
That's the first time you got to laugh on the whole episode.
So anyway, Rich has got to go shine some shoes now. So we should let him go. And thank you so much, Rich. I hope we get to hang out this summer. Yeah, man, I think that'll about do it. Anything else, Lance?
Miss, you mean it.
Yeah, man.
Likewise, and guys, I really am honored. I really am surprised that you wanted to do this, and thank you.
Why would we not want to do it? You're nice, and you've done lots of interesting stuff. So, like this rehearsal you're about to go to. So, without further ado, that does it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Joey Santillo. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.